Joaquin asked me to give you kind of a glimpse of why, we should be paying so much attention to the terroir, to the different climates, to the microclimates in Mendoza. I think we've just done it with these whites. And I know they're somewhere from Chile, but I'm talking about Mendoza. But I think it's interesting too, like what I tasted today from Chile is so terroir driven. So I think when I say, let's pay attention to this, I mean also the other side of the Andes.
Of course.
Because a lot of people think of Argentina and Chile have more different terroirs than Burgundy or Bordeaux, but people see us together, and it's really great that we're both making such amazing wines, because then it's about the region. So yeah. So who's been to Mendoza? Who's been to Mendoza? Okay, so all of you, let's start planning. So what's really important to grasp is this idea of the altitude, which is difficult to understand when, for example, many people have gone to France. And have you heard of the Winkler classification of vineyards? So basically, very cold is zone 1, very warm is zone 4. So to go from a zone 4 to a zone 1, Southern Rhone to Champagne, how long is that drive?
60 kilometers, 600 kilometers.
So it's quite long, right? So from the Southern Rhone to Champagne, it's about a 7-hour drive, right? Yeah. To go from that difference in climate in Mendoza, it's 1 hour. So you go from around 3,000 feet, and I'm going to do feet.
Yeah, you know how to speak that.
Honestly, it took me like 20 years to learn the feet. So I have to show off. So from about 3,000 to 5,000 feet elevation, you have the kind of temperature difference that in France, it takes 6 hours to drive it, right? So it's 1 hour. And then you also have in the different altitudes, different soils. You have stony soils, you have sandy soils, you have deeper, more shallow. We were talking about that here. And so it's so fascinating that you can literally make a wine in this little parcel and in another little parcel. Just walk here and you'll have a completely different taste. And right now we're tasting the river Malbec that comes from the Adrianna Vineyard at almost 5,000 feet elevation, and it's got these stones. And it used to be called the River Stones. If you've heard about River Stones, it's the same wine, but we had a trademark issue, so it's called River. But it's a dried river bed. And now more questions. So I'm confident that Malbec is the most interesting grape in the world. It is, yes. And when I say interesting, you might not find it the most delicious. I find it very delicious. But it is a very interesting grape because so many things have happened to it, and it's a survivor, and it always survives. So just a few questions. Does anybody know when are the first mentions of the Malbec grape in the world?
I know, but I won't say.
But you can't say. You can't say, Joaquin. You have a PhD in that, so no. So it's about 2,000 years old, right? It dates back to the Romans when they walked through Cahors, the part of France. That's when Malbec, the black wine, is first described. Then first it becomes really famous at the time of Eleanor of Aquitaine. Then it almost disappears during the 100 Years' Wars because the Bordelais were really evil, and they were trying to suppress the people from Cahors.
That's absolutely true.
So yeah, they were trying to block the river. Then it comes to Argentina. It almost disappears in France after phylloxera because it had problems with grafting and it was not productive enough. Malbec is not a productive grape. It is not to make a lot of cheap wine. You cannot. It just does not yield a lot. So then it comes to Argentina, where it gets widely planted and people love it, and they're mostly drinking in Argentina. But then we have all the bad things that happen in Argentina with the economy. Actually, I have to say, for the economy, the Chileans do much better. We do better.
Absolutely. They are in the right side of the economy.
We do better in football. In football, we do better. But in the economy, we give that to the Chileans, right? Yeah, we give that to the Chileans.
That's absolutely true.
But yeah, okay. So basically, then it comes to Argentina, but then we have an economic crisis and people are pulling out the Malbec, and it's almost about to go extinct again. And if it weren't for the first wines from Argentina, which included the Catena Malbec that was featured in the Wall Street Journal, for the first time there was a newspaper article in the late 90s about Malbec, Malbec might have disappeared in Argentina as well. And there's Agustina Hobbs here that her father was working at our family winery back then, and it was the wine that he made with our team as a consultant that kind of put Malbec on the world map, because nobody knew what Malbec was anymore. And then, the rest is history, and today everybody knows about Argentine Malbec. So do we agree that it is perhaps the most interesting grape? Or at least it's got an interesting story, right? Yes. Okay, the interesting story. Okay. All right, so, well, anyhow, enjoy the wine. This is, again, very high altitude. This is a wine that should be able to age very well from this really beautiful grape. And it comes from Massal Selections. So a Massal selection is basically a biodiverse selection. Right now in Europe, less than 10% of the vineyards are Massal, biodiverse. In Argentina, any guesses what the number is? 91%. So we have a lot of biodiversity. I don't know what it is. Do you guys know what Massal selections are in Chile? What percentage? I want to know that data, so if you have it, tell Joaquin, and I want him to tell me.
I'm going to study that, because there's
I
no
need to know that.
Yeah,
and all of these, also these vines are all ungrafted, okay? So no American rootstock on these. Okay, salud.
Salud.
Thank you.